Hi, my name's David Holt from Metcash, and today what we're going to do is go through some of these e-log sheets, namely the thermometer calibration log sheet on the ref system. So if you've got one of these tablets, this is what you should be doing at least on a weekly basis to make sure that the temperature equipment that you are using to take temperatures in your store are accurate. No point these being inaccurate when you go and do your temperature checks of your fridges, your receiving temperatures or anything like that, because if you're not taking accurate temperatures of your product, then you're not making sure that your business is staying safe, or you're selling safe food to your customers. So really important. These are probably one of the most important pieces of equipment in your store. Every single store should have what we call a probe. It's part of the food standards code that you have a probe available in your store, because if you do have any issues with temperatures of product, then the only way that you can verify actual food temperature is by probing that product and making sure that you've got a core temperature of the product. Okay, so every store should have a probe. It might look like this one, or it might even look like a pencil probe. You might have heard that term before, or a pen probe. But so long as you have something that you can probe a food type with, that's something that's required in your store. There are 3 different types of checks that you can do depending on the equipment that you've got in your store. When you go through and you choose your thermometer calibration checklist, your e-log sheet, then the first thing it's going to ask is for your name. Type your name in. If it's not in there, choose other, and you'll be able to type your name in there. Once you've done that, you need to choose what test type it is that you're doing. The third check that we have, which is the one that I recommend, it's what's called the full temperature kit, test tags required. This is the one that I will always recommend stores do. It might cost a little bit more money to make sure you've got this equipment, but it's well worth it in the end, because it cuts down the time that it takes to do these checks, and it makes sure that you don't have people using boiling water, you've got burning issues, those types of things. What you do need to have is these test tags. A 63-degree test tag is needed in your store to make sure that if you're doing hot food, that you're checking the accuracy of the thermometers at the hot food temperature. We know, because the food standards code tells us, that hot food has to be stored or displayed at above 60 degrees. That's why this test tag is set at 63 degrees. We also know that food, potentially hazardous food, has to be kept below 5 degrees. So that's why this test tag is set at 3 degrees. These are electronically set. There's a little chip inside here that tells us that they're going to be accurate. If they become inaccurate, they get dropped, they get damaged, then unfortunately you're going to need to go and buy a new test tag. But we use these in all of our stores to make sure that it's quick and easy, and we do it on a weekly basis. It takes no more than 5 minutes. So we're going to go through and do that now. To use these test tags, as I said earlier, you need to make sure that you've got one of these thermometers. Sometimes they look a little bit different. They may look a little bit newer, but at the end of the day, they're the only ones these test tags fit into the top with, okay? So the first check we're going to do, because this is the one that's on the log sheet, is the 3 degrees test piece. We're going to grab that, we're going to put it into the digital thermometer, we're going to do it up. Now the reason why we do it up is to make sure that it's got a tight connection. If you don't have that tight connection, then it's probably not going to show you accurate details. So it's a 3 degree test piece. You turn on your digital thermometer, and as I said, it's electronically calibrated, these test pieces. That's telling me that this digital thermometer is at 2.9 degrees. Now, we don't need it to say 3 degrees. The accuracy for these test tags is about 0.3 or 0.4 degrees. So as long as it's between that, we're very happy that the digital thermometer is accurate. The next check that we're going to do, because we do hot food in this store, is we're going to use the 63 degree test piece to make sure that at the hot temperature, our digital thermometer is accurate. So it's a 63 degree test piece. It says 63.1. So I'm happy that this digital thermometer is accurate at the hot temperature level. So when we're taking our temperatures of hot food, whether it's in the display, whether we're cooking it, we know that we're going to get an accurate reading. Those figures, when you've used your test tag, need to be entered into your tablet. So the 3 degrees test tag was sitting at 3.1 degrees. Your 63 degrees was sitting at 63.1 degrees. If they were outside of the limits, and the limits being 2.6 to 3.4, or between 62.6 to 63.4, then the system's going to tell you there's a problem, something's not accurate, and you need to fix it. As I said before, the digital thermometer could be needs a battery change. You might need to repeat the test, but you need to do that to make sure they're accurate before you move on to the next stage. Because we know they're accurate, we're now going to use this comparator pot to test our IR, our infrared gun, against our digital thermometer. So with the little holes there, just going to plug back in my probe. And I'm going to stick my probe into the little hole there. I'm going to wait for the temperature to regulate. It's sitting at 17.5, which is where we had it before. 17.7. (18 degrees). Once that stops moving, then we want to do our IR gun, and we point it into the centre of the comparator pot, and we want to make sure that the gun is telling us that it's within plus or minus 1 degree of the digital probe. So we're sitting at 18.1 degrees, the gun's telling me 18.3 degrees, so that means that all of our equipment is accurate. We want to then put that into the tablet, the digital probe at 18.1, the IR temperature gun at 18.3. The tablet tells us that that's okay, it's within the limits, so therefore we can sign that off and we can submit the log sheet. If it's outside of plus or minus 1 degree of 18.1, then again the tablet's going to tell us that we've got a problem. You won't be able to submit the log sheet until you fix that problem, or you do some corrective action later and you rectify it with buying some new equipment. One more thing to remember is that when you have these digital thermometers, it's the 3 degree and the 63 degree test pieces that you need to make sure that you're selling safe food. The 3 degree test piece is used for anything that's chilled or frozen, and your 63 degree test piece is used for anything where you're doing any cooking, where you're cooling your food from above 63 degrees, where you're holding any hot food. Those are the ones that you'll need to make sure that this equipment is accurate and is able to be used in your store.